Left Behind the Kids #2, Second Chance, Chapter 9, Together Again, page 109. It was well past dark, and Vicky had been sleeping on her back for more than 9 hours, her feet flat on the floor at the end of the bed. Her eyes popped open, and she stared at the ceiling, wondering where she was. It came to her quickly. Her mouth felt thick and dry, her eyes still heavy, and yet she rested. A deep emptiness born of loss and sorrow overtook her, yet she was comforted as well by her new faith. From the living room came the sound of the television. Jude must be up. She tiptoed only to find him curled up on the couch, still sleeping. So she thought, neither of them had slept when they planned. She gently pulled the remote control from his hands and turned off the TV. Jude did not stir. She would take advantage of the time to get cleaned up and changed. The hot shower felt so good she couldn't hardly pull herself away from it. She didn't know if hot water was limited in a big house like this the way it was in a trailer where family members had to schedule their showers carefully. She hoped she had saved enough hot water for Jude. Vicky pulled one of Mrs. Thompson's silky robes, sat drying her hair, then brushing it. She felt so much better than she had, and she had to admit she looked better too. It was time for a new look. All her own clothes had been lost in the fire, and that was for the best. While she didn't care to look like a mother of teenagers, as Mrs. Thompson was, neither did she ever want to go back to her old look. Vicky was grateful to find that her feet were roughly the same as Miss Thompson's had been. She hung up the pantsuit that had been served as her blanket when she fell asleep, and she found a sweater, jeans, white socks, and tennis shoes. Vicky had no idea whether she and Jude were going anywhere that evening, but these were good hanging around the house clothes too. She had not dressed this way since she was a little girl. Not so many hours ago she would have considered this her least likely choice for an outfit. Yet as she looked in the mirror now, she felt it was a good look for her. Vicky knew she and Joe might both regret having caught up on their sleep during the day. No way to be tired at normal bedtime, but she had said something earlier trying to hook up with Bruce Barnes again that evening. She would like that. Bruce was an interesting guy. He seemed to care about them so much, and yet he hardly knew them. She wanted to see his reaction when he found out that not just one, both of them had become believers. And what about those two younger kids, Lionel and Ryan? Lionel already become a Christian, but the other one, the little blonde kid, had run off angry. Vicky couldn't blame him. How would she have felt in this situation, losing both parents and knowing they probably weren't in heaven? Vicky hoped Lionel had found Ryan and had some influence on him. She had been acquainted with Lionel and Ryan for such a short time, yet she found herself already caring what would become of them. These are all new emotions and feelings for her. Vicky was hungry again. She went to the living room to see if Jude was still asleep. He was gone, and she heard water running upstairs. If his shower felt as good as hers, he would feel a lot better. She rummaged in the kitchen for a snack for the two of them, set it up in front of the TV, and sat watching the news while waiting for him. Lionel and Ryan had to stay on the other side of the street from the Steele's house because the car was coming the other way, and Lionel didn't want to risk crossing in front of it. He knew if he didn't, Ryan wouldn't. Lionel didn't understand why Ryan seemed so younger when the difference in their ages was barely a year. But it was worth comparing their predicaments. He had to admit that Ryan was worse off than he was. The headlights coming the other way did not pass the boys, however. They stopped in front of the Steele home, and Lionel noticed that the car was a cab. That's Ramey's sister, Chloe, Ryan said as the young woman emerged from the back seat. The cabbie jumped out and pulled her large huge suitcase from the trunk. He sat next to her as she dug in her purse for the fare. She was paying him when the front door of the house burst open and a tall, dark man ran out on his stocking feet. As the cabbie pulled away, Rayford Steele gathered his daughter into his arms. "Oh, Daddy," she wailed. "How is everybody?" He looked back away from her enough so that she could see him shaking his head sadly. "I don't want to hear this," she said, pulling away from him, looking into the house as if expecting to see her mother or brother. "It's just you and me, Chloe," Mr. Steele said, and they stood together in the darkness, crying. Lionel said to Ryan, getting ready to cross the street and greet them. "Not now," Lionel whispered. "Plenty of time to talk to them, but not now." As father and daughter made their way back inside, Ryan said, I'm not ready to go back home yet." "You want to go to the church?" Lionel asked. "What for?" "To see if Bruce Barnes is still there." "Why would I want to do that? I don't believe all that stuff he's saying, and even if it is true, it was mean of God to do that to us kids." "We had our chances," Lionel said. "I didn't. You said Ramey Steele told you all about this a while ago." Yeah, well, I want to go see Bruce. You could wait here, go home alone, or whatever you want." "I'll go, but I'm not coming in. Whatever." Vicky felt a strange reaction when Judah came downstairs, cleaned up and dressed. He had shaved off his goatee and looked much younger. She still had no idea what she thought of him as a person. She was glad they might become friends because she needed one, and he seemed to know a lot about God and the Bible because of how he had been raised. Vicky had no feelings for him or romantic interest in him. It was way too early for that, and because of what she had been through, she wasn't even thinking that way. But Jude seemed so impressed with her new look that she wondered if he was allowing himself to become interested in her. She talked herself out of it, however. It was impossible. He had been through as great of a trauma as she had, and he had to be suffering privately as much as she. Anyway, he had seen where she lived. No way would a guy like him be interested in her. "Oh, good," he said. "Food. What's on TV? Same as what's been on the whole time since the disappearances. News, and more news." She had seen the strange videotapes they had seen on the news earlier. So far, she hadn't. All they're talking about now, she says, this guy with the funny name from some country in Eastern Europe. He became president of his country recently, and now he's coming to speak at the UN, right? Yeah, I heard about him. Nicholas something, and his last name sounds like a mountain range. Nikolai, I think, Vicky said. She hadn't picked up the last name either, but then the young leader's picture came on the news again. She turned it up. The announcer referred to him as Nicolae Carpathia, the new president of Romania. You're right, Jude said. Nikolai. And he must have been named after the Carpathian Mountains. Hey, Vicky said, I thought you said you didn't do well in school. How do you know about those mountains? Jude looked embarrassed. That's all I know, he said. Really, just reached the end of my information. They ate and watched the news for several minutes. Finally, Vicky asked if he was still thinking about trying to see Bruce that night. Yeah, I was, he said. You want to? Sure, I'll call and make sure he's there. Lionel and Ryan dragged their bikes inside the church and found Jude's bike there too. They poked around looking for Bruce. Lionel had wondered if Jude was there or he had just never taken his bike home. Lionel and Ryan found Bruce finishing a session with several older people. Before he could greet them, Ryan said, I'll be waiting by the bikes. I've heard all this before. Come on, Ryan. No. Lionel looked apologetically at Bruce when he approached. Good to see you again, Lionel. Let me introduce you to these folks. Lionel couldn't keep track of the names except for one, Bruce's secretary, Loretta. She was old, had a southern accent, and seemed classy. Lionel knew she was going to spend much time at this church. You ought to get to know her. Bruce whispered, ask her sometime to tell you her own story. It'll amaze you. Lionel had been wondering about how this handful of old people had been left behind. He figured anybody who had been around that long, especially churchgoers, would have learned the truth long ago. But then he had time too and knew the truth. Like him, maybe they simply didn't respond to it. Well, they found Ryan, as you can see. Yeah, don't worry about him hanging back for a while. I'm sure he's embarrassed about bolting on us. We don't scare him off. He'll come around and be curious and eventually join us again. Lionel's look of doubt must have betrayed him. You don't agree? Bruce said, I've been working on him, Lionel said. I know how important you say it is for him to not put this off. It is. But it's not like he's putting it off. It's more like he really doesn't understand or doesn't want to. Some things he understands fine, but just doesn't believe in God. Bruce shook his head and pulled up a chair for Lionel. Bruce sat on the corner of a table, he took off his wire-rimmed glasses and ran his hand through his curly hair. He'll believe in God before long if there's any truth to what I've been studying. Everybody's going to know God is in this when the 7-year tribulation begins. People are going to be dying left and right, and we better be prepared. I'm so glad you made a decision right away like I did. I know you're sorry you missed out on the rapture, but there's no sense in waiting once you knew what happened, right? Lionel nodded. I saw Jude's bike out there. Did he come back? No, he left that here. But I did just get a call from him. He and Vicky are coming by this evening. He sounded a little more upbeat. I didn't talk to her. I didn't talk to her, but I'm sure worried about them. Both of them are where you and I were. I don't want them to keep finding reasons to put off coming to Christ. Lionel told Bruce about his and Ryan's day. He was impressed that Bruce, as tired as he had to be, seemed interested in every detail. Bruce offered to drive Lionel back to the morgue in Chicago so he could identify his uncle's body. He said he would call the police about the intruders in his house and ask them to check Ryan's house too. I don't want you to have to go worry about all that stuff, Lionel said. Everybody is going to have a lot of this kind of stuff going on, and you can't do this for them all. So he called me in a generous mood. Take advantage of it. I need to stay busy. For one thing, I'm making up for lost time. But you must know I've got reasons to not want to go home too. Lionel nodded. Who was he supposed to take care of Bruce? Who was supposed to take care of Bruce and Bruce taking care of everybody else? Bruce told me there were several small groups he was meeting with. I can tell adults a little more about what I'm going through this morning as much as I'm supporting them. We're getting more and more calls every day from people who have had some contact with this church in the past. I think we're going to have quite a crowd here Sunday. People are desperate for answers, and we have them. Lionel said wishing Ryan would come back in from the foyer. He kept looking back that way. Was there something specific you wanted, Lionel? Bruce asked. Me? No. I just wanted to check in with you. I've been wondering about those other two, too, and I've been hoping we could work on them and Ryan. Ryan's going to be the toughest, Bruce said. This is newer to him, and his parents are dead. Ryan traded off sitting on the floor and moseying around the front of the church, idly looking at the literature in the foyer. He was bored, but he had no interest in meeting with Bruce again. He just pulled the tract off the table and began reading it, not understanding a bit of it when Jude and Vicky came in. He looked at them and then looked away embarrassed. He hoped they wouldn't say anything about his crying and running out. Hey, Ryan, Vicky said, glad you came back. Where's Bruce? Ryan shrugged. Somewhere with Lionel. Is it private or we can join them? Ryan shrugged again, wishing she would stop asking him questions. He didn't know and he didn't care. Hey, Jude said, now where are you guys staying? Now there was a question Ryan wanted to answer. He gushed the whole story about being scared to go into his own house. Now Lionel's place had been taken over by guys who might have murdered Lionel's uncle. He told him someone had broken into his house just where he almost talked himself into agreeing with Lionel that they should stay there. I've got plenty of room in my house, Jude said. In fact, you do? Ryan said quickly. That would be great. Can I stay with you even if Lionel doesn't want to? Slow down there, little man, Jude said. We could all talk about this together and see what Bruce thinks about it. Vicky and I have some news for all of you anyway. Come on, let's find Lionel and Bruce. I don't want to. Why not? Same reason as the other night. I don't believe in this stuff. I don't believe this stuff. Well, you probably will. No, I won't. Even if you don't, we're all in this thing together. We have to watch out for each other. We need each other. You just want to talk me into this. Nobody can do that, little man. It means nothing anyway unless you decide on your own. I want to stay out here. Ryan was worried they would disappoint Judah looked peeved. What if I said you could only stay with me if you only stay with me come in and see Bruce? I guess I'd have to then, Ryan muttered. You're probably going to force me to become a Christian too. No, I won't do that. Nobody can do that. What about you guys? Are you Christians now too, like Lionel? Judah appears to be about to answer when Vicky interrupted. You can find another meeting with Bruce, Jude. I mean, if you'd rather stay here, you can just wait to see what we talked about. Good idea, Jude said. What's it going to be, Ryan? Do you promise to quit calling me little man? Sure. Now quit stalling. I want to stay here, Jude said. It's your call, Jude turning to head into the sanctuary. Hope you don't regret it, Vicky said, not in a mean way. In fact, Ryan thought she seemed so nice he wouldn't have minded going in with them. They're almost out of sight when he muttered, "Wait up, I'm coming." So yeah, that's chapter 9 of the second book left on the kids series, Second Chance. Yeah, that was pages 109 to 122. And take care, everybody. Another video from my Storytime channel.